Hollywood is the place where many people come to accomplish their dreams. That, of course, doesn't apply just to actors and actresses, but also to filmmakers. Los Angeles is definitely a place for dreamers, and everyone who comes here knows they will have to struggle. If you're a woman, the effort might be twice as hard, despite the industry claiming that many things in the business have changed. We're going to hear the success stories of two inspiring ladies and what it cost them to enter this predominantly male-driven industry. It is a great pleasure that today on Cinema Confidential, we're going to talk about powerful women with a powerful woman, Marilyn R. Atlas, literary manager and film producer. And talent manager. Hi, Marilyn. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. I know you're very busy. You're hopping on and off planes all the time. And so I'm really, really excited to be able to talk to you. And let's start a little bit from the beginning. How did your love for film develop in the first place?
As a young girl, I was a voracious reader. One thing that I think has served me very well later in my life, I was fascinated by writers from different countries. So I read writers from India, writers from Japan, writers from Africa, the continent, and various writers from Latin America. When I was older, one summer I wasn't working, and every day there was a little film theater near where I lived in New York, and every 2 or 3 days they played movies from England, from India, from Mexico. So that was kind of my learning. I didn't go to college for what I do, but I learned from reading and going to a lot of movies.
One wish, and I have to be in it.
You are. Okay. Yay!
Let's pause for a moment and remember the day, for me, the moment you popped out of my cooch.
Oh, God. My mom has what I like to call a polarizing personality.
We just have a really close relationship. Oh, tattoos! Let's get matching tattoos.
Oh, yes, that's just what I've always wanted.
Really?
No!
We'll welcome a fierce female filmmaker. She has a lot of different jobs. She has done a lot of different jobs throughout the year, so I think it's better that she tells us that herself instead of me presenting her. So we say hi to Salome Breziner. Hi.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to be able to talk to you because, like I said, you've done so many things over the years, so many different projects, and you also have done something that's like unspeakable in this world. You took time off to raise your kids.
I did.
And you managed to come back.
I managed to come back.
How did your interest in filmmaking begin?
Well, when I was really young, I used to like to direct my family. I was very bossy. My earliest memories was I always tried to get everybody in my family to be cohesive. So my mother always said, you know, if I was cold, I would say, oh, I'm cold, I'm going to get a sweater. Let's all put sweaters on. And they would look at me like I was crazy, but they also did everything I said. So that was a character trait I've always had. I went to boarding school in Massachusetts, and I always had an interest in film, and I started really getting into film history. I studied every filmmaker I could possibly study, and then I applied to NYU and I got in, and I stayed there for about a year, and I was already working. I got asked to start working on films right away.
When I saw you for the first time, something that I remember very well is what you said, that you were totally self-made and nobody actually helped you in your career. So how did that happen? Like, you're a woman, you entered such a huge business. How did you do that?
You raised two interesting points to me. One of the reasons why it's so important to me to give back is that I know so much of what I had to learn was on my own. And I always felt it would have been interesting to have had a mentor or someone that could have imparted information to me. So I'm very sensitive, particularly at giving back to other women. I've always followed my intuition and my gut, and it served me well most of the time.
What would you say is the hardest thing that you had to overcome in your career?
Well, the fact is I was fired from many, many jobs. And so I think information or contacts that I may have learned in the context of a job, I had to learn on my own and figure out stuff. So that was just a big learning lesson for me.
When did you have your first client, and how did you come? How did that happen? Like, how did you?
Oh, that's
start
interesting.
working?
I haven't thought about that in years. As I said, I had read various writers from all over. And I met a woman from South Africa. And of course, I'd read a lot of South African writers. And I had just produced 2 plays by that time. And she was in the States and reached out to me because she had just written a play that was produced in South Africa and I think was going to be produced in England. And that's how she became my first client. It was more that sense of simpatico, someone that had created content. It was about a very interesting woman in history who did not let herself be usurped by the man she was married to. So right away we had this kind of an affinity for material, and that's how it started.
And I knew that I ultimately wanted to direct, and my way in was being a script supervisor because I was very good. My really big strength is language. My first language is French, my second language is Spanish. English was my third language.
Because you were born in Belgium.
I was born in Belgium.
Why? How come?
My parents are Belgian.
Okay.
I grew up in Caracas, Venezuela until I was 7.5, 8 years old. And then we all moved to Florida. And for me, everything in my childhood through my eyes was very magical realism. It had a little bit of the Spanish. It had a lot of the European. My parents were European Jews that went through the Holocaust.
Oh my God.
So that's how that's how we all ended up in Venezuela.
Entonces hablas español perfectamente.
Hablo español perfectamente.
Mejor
Sí.
que el inglés.
Mejor que el inglés, no igual que el inglés.
Firuza Balk,
We're both kind of damaged. Isn't that what you told me?
Lenny Von Dolan,
You know, they all think I'm crazy.
Will Patton,
This whole thing has got me like, it's just inspired.
Seymour Cassell,
Everyone wants to work Vice.
and Academy Award winner Louise Fletcher.
You look so beautiful.
Toll Booth, a love story.
My first big project was my first feature film. I was 22. I wanted to make a feature, and I spent 6 days in Ventura, California, in a motel with a coffee maker and a typewriter that I had borrowed from Universal Studios. And I wrote my first feature film, Toll Booth. It was based a lot on my views of my childhood and my mother's dysfunction and my father not being around. Subsequently, I came to learn later in life that I was adopted and that these weren't really my parents.
Oh my God.
So everything became this story that was very interesting because what I thought was truth was not, and the lines all blurred. I made this film, it's fiction, obviously, but it was very true to me and to the feelings I had about abandonment and love.
Did your mother watch that film?
Yes, both my mothers have watched the film.
Both your mothers? You met your biological mother as
Yes.
well? Oh my God, that's really
And we're very close.
And what is, you think, the most crucial element in the relationship between manager?
Well, I've had many clients for over 20 years, and I think there's a basic understanding, and I'm really committed to them and what they want to do. But there's also the business part. You know, what's going on in the marketplace. Is this, if you're a writer, is this a project that there's a place to sell it at this particular point in time? Does it need to be changed, and how difficult is that for you as a creative person? And in 1996, I was given a play called Real Women Have Curves, and I didn't read it. It lied next to my bed, which always has a bunch of books next to it in umpteenth magazines. And I was intrigued by the title. And so finally one day I picked it up and I read it, and I could not believe that the writer wrote it when she was 17 years old. This tremendous amount of insight into living in a culture where fat shaming is pretty prevalent, living in a culture where if you're a child of an immigrant, that your vision of what you may want to do with your life may be limited. I liked the friendship between all these women, because that's something that's very important to me in my personal life. I have long friendships with very, very diverse and interesting women.
Real women have curves.
At the time when I did this, I was very young, and there weren't a lot of female filmmakers, but I didn't know that in my own head. I'm in my own movie, so I didn't know women didn't make films. I just do what I do. I'm me. I've never been a partner in women in film. It's not that I don't support women in film. I support everybody. We went to Cannes, and you know, here I am with Quentin Tarantino. He had Reservoir Dogs. I had Toll Booth. All he wanted to do was ask me out on a date, and I was, you know, horrified.
Why didn't you go on a date with Quentin Tarantino?
No comment. So, but you know, that pretty much lines it up. I did what I do, and then you know, I made another film. That was a very interesting experience where I really believe I got hired on that studio film because I was a female and they thought they could control me. It was a film.
Did not work out that way.
It didn't work out that way, at least for me. They controlled the film, and I stopped making studio films. And I was very young to make that decision, but I did. And then I went to make a film called Fast Sofa. It has an excellent cast. We had a lot of trouble with the financing, so I couldn't really edit it the way I would like, but I stand by the film. We had a great time. It stars Crispin Glover, Natasha Lyonne, Eric Roberts, Jake Busey, and you know, I had the best time with Jennifer Tilly of anybody who's ever worked with Jennifer Tilly. She is really...
Go get a bottle of tequila.
I don't drink tequila. I only drink champagne. Perrier Jouet. The kind with the petals on the bottle.
I was making Fast Sofa, and I met Brad Wyman, who I married, and oh my God, I'm pregnant. And so I was very happy. We were married, and then I got pregnant. And I said, I don't want to make these crazy films. I don't want to be away. I want to enjoy my children, at least until they're walking and talking. So my son was 2. I was very happy. I said, oh, I'm going to go back to work soon, but I'm going to make really happy movies. And then I got pregnant again. And I was very happy because I said, okay, now my oldest son, Eugene, will have a little brother, Oliver. And so then you start the process all over again. And that's another 5-6 years. So I took about 8 or 9 years off. And then when they were already in school, and I said, okay, so I'm gonna come back. And people said, oh, we thought you retired. I said, well, you know, no one retires at 36. I mean, what do you mean I'm retired?
And you also are part of some amazing books. Latest
Yes,
one of which...
one of the things that, thank you for bringing that up. I tried to figure out many years ago, what is it when I started to produce plays or eventually was fortunate enough in getting some projects made, or the writers that I've represented, the books that I've read, what was it that so strongly resonated in me about these writers and their material? And it came to me, it was because they created interesting characters that were three-dimensional and complex, and not usually the stereotypes that you often see. And with an associate of mine and another woman, the three of us wrote a book called Dating Your Character. It's 536 pages.
I love the title.
Yeah.
Because
it's set, set in the dating world. Each chapter deals with a different part of dating, but it's really exercises to get writers to root down almost into the DNA of the character. Not necessarily to go with your gut instincts, because a lot of times I feel that's not deep enough or interesting enough, or it becomes cliched, or we've seen it before. You know, I now for the last 20 years document all the books that I read. So I have this little book journals, and then, you know, the day that I get a book and I begin to read it, I write down the name, the title of the book, the writer, when I started it, when I finished, and then a summary. So I've like 20 years of every book that I've ever read.
Yeah, that's me. I've always been a dork.
Hey, out of the way, dork face!
I was worried about you, Peyton. You seemed distracted in class.
That's the girl I'm gonna marry someday. Carrie Smith.
I went to the producer that I like to work with the most, Stephen Wolf, and I said, okay, I'm ready. Let's go, let's make something. And he says, well, I have this high school comedy. I'm like, I'm in. He said, yeah, but you know, it's not your regular psychodrama dark. I said, no, I have little kids. I want, you know, happy.
Bright, happy colors.
So I made a movie called Secret Lives of Dorks in 2011. And I had a really great time. And then after that, I did a film called Helicopter Mom with Nia Vardalos. Which was also, I had a blast. But I didn't want to keep making the same movie over and over again. And I find that I was sort of pigeonholed in, people said, oh, let's just keep making independent comedies. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. And one of the things I found, given my schedule, is that I like to produce things that I don't direct. I'm very good at putting things together, casting mostly, and financing, and script. So I started producing for other people, for other directors. And I've had great success doing that when I'm not directing, and it also lets me spend time with my family.
And how do you manage to leave the world of the job? Like, how do you recharge? Because you're busy non-stop, and this works non-stop. How do
That
you
is a
manage?
great question, because I don't know
If
that I
you
necessarily
do
do. I mean, I hike, I do yoga, and I love to travel. That's a big passion of mine. I'm about to go to my 56th country in May. I'm going to go to Colombia.
I've been there.
I'm so excited because I forget all the wonderful writers and the sense of magical realism and the art and everything, but I've wanted to go for the last few years, and got sidetracked and went other places, so I'm very excited.
All I have is this crazy mom.
I've been here for 17 years, day in and day out.
You wouldn't at all be interested in maybe going to prom with me?
I thought you liked boys.
You're the girl trying to steal my son away from me.
If you keep this up, Lloyd is going to hate you.
There is nobody else here who is sabotaging their kid's life like you are mine. I have no idea if I'm gay or straight. It's 2014. Being gay is cool now.